pacing. It's one of the biggest mysteries of new writers. Today I'm going to demystify the whole thing, hopefully, with my 4 elements of pacing. But first, let me hop over and talk about the 9-point Kickstarter. We're less than 1K away from our 50% goal, and I have a new puppy that I'm not going to share on social media until we reach that 50%. Less than 1K, we can do it. There's a card right there. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Thanks. I am so happy that we've gotten this far, regardless of what happens. So check it out. Alright, now let's talk about pacing. Now the first step to learning how to pace your comic is to get a better idea of what pacing is. Pacing is the sense of time you get when you are reading a story. This doesn't always mean the actual amount of time that it takes to read, though that is part of it. You know the saying, time flies when you're having fun and a watched pot never boils? That's sort of how pacing works. Pacing is the sense of time created by various elements of your writing. Your goal when pacing your comic is to match your pace with whatever sort of event is occurring in your story. If it is an action scene, you usually want to make it feel quick and snappy. If it's a scene that's quiet, reflective, it usually needs to feel kind of slow. Tense scenes need to be slow too, but like agonizingly slow. Feelings of dread and horror as you wait for it to end. You know, that's pacing for you. Now, how do you go about controlling pacing, and how do you obtain the perfect pace for your scene, page, story, whatever it is that you're trying to write? Well, lucky for you, I have a nifty selection of 4 elements to control your pace, and let's call them REDS, because everyone loves acronyms because they really help you. So REDS stands for rhythm, engagement, detail, and size. So first, we are going to move a bit out of order here. I would have put them in order, but that doesn't make a fun word. So, unfortunately, rhythm is our most complex element of controlling pace, and it kind of sprouts out of size and detail. So, let's start over there at the end, okay? Size is by far the most obvious element of pace. Large things take up more time to read, more time to look at, they call more attention, they increase your pace dramatically. Whether it is a large panel, a longer scene, more panels, longer sentences, more dialogue, whatever it is, if it's big, it slows the pace. And if it is small, it will speed up the pace. If you have 50 panels of someone tying their shoe, it's gonna take more to read than just one panel of your character tying their shoe. Alright. The next is detail. Detail is the quantity of information, or more accurately, the concentration of information. Panels, pages, dialogue, scenes, whatever they are, packing them with detail requires the reader to slow down, and thus it will slow down your pace. That will then lead us back to rhythm, with those in mind, okay? Rhythm is what you get with the interplay of size and detail, as well as the interplay of the different levels of pacing that you're dealing with. Take, for example, like a larger panel with minimal detail, or a small panel with many details. Rhythm is a lot more complex when it comes to changing your pace. And really, what it comes down to is the fact that pace doesn't occur at one level of your writing, nor does it ever happen at a really consistent rate. I say ever, but sometimes pace happens at a consistent rate. At the dialogue level, though, the panel level, the scene, chapter, sentence, book, each of those is going to be operating at a different pace. It's like if you zoom out, you get less detail. If you zoom out to the book level, your pace looks less erratic, but as you zoom in more, you'll find that each scene has some sort of like pace changes. Like, you might have a page that pauses at the end for a dramatic reveal, where the rest of the scene is rather quick in relation to your story. That's sort of what I mean, where pace is happening at different levels, and you need to be able to consider that, and that comes down to rhythm, because again, it's not happening at a consistent rate. As you play with things like size, repetition, detail, you then create a certain rhythm within your comic, or I guess your story as well. And again, this is by far the most difficult one to get a grasp on, because it is kind of two elements combined as well as like another element. But make note of the rhythm of your story, because you don't want it to be droning on at the same speed constantly, because that kind of gets boring. It's very easy to see this at the sentence level. If all of your sentences are operating at the same pace, it gets boring and it gets monotonous. So it's like, the ball is red, girl is sad, the tree is big. Like, if all of your sentences follow the exact same rhythm, if all your panels followed the same rhythm, it would get boring, it would get monotonous, and it would then affect how your overall pace feels. You need the interplay of size, you need an interplay of detail. You can't just continually go on at a consistent rate to get the sense of pace that you want. You can overdo it, basically. All right, and I guess that moves nicely into my final element of pace, and that is the element of engagement. Engagement is hard to tell on your own, but engagement is how invested your reader is. If something is boring, it'll move slow. We all know that. We've all been in a class we don't want to be in. If it moves so slow that your reader is so bored, they might skip things, and that is going to lead to confusion later on, okay? So if you don't want to be boring, but you still need to take time, you need to work on making your scene, character, you name it, more engaging. You can add some more character interaction, you can change up the setting, you can change up the framing of your story. I think I've mentioned this a lot throughout the challenge, but make it more engaging, and whatever it makes it more exciting, that will help with your pace, because when things are engaging, they move quicker, okay? The opposite of that is that if you add too much in your scene, if you try to engage your readers too much, you can get really distracting. And with too much happening and too much overwhelming your reader, they'll get overwhelmed, they'll get confused, they might skip things. So there's like two ends to the spectrum on that. So try not to overwhelm your readers, but at the same time, don't bore them either. And that comes down to managing readers' level of engagement. All right, now learning all of these elements and learning how to use them to your advantage, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of practice. I mean, I barely described rhythm very well to you, I don't think. But pacing is one of those things that can't really be edited perfectly from within your story, meaning you can't just finish your story and then immediately go and fix the pace, because it's going to be drastically affected by the last time that you read it. If you understand everything about the story, you're understandably going to be more bored by certain elements that you already understand and want to skip. So give yourself time between editing, and make sure to look at other people and ask them questions about their engagement level and what they found boring, what they found confusing, because that's where you're going to find where you're struggling with your pace, where you need to slow things down and speed things up. Because if a reader is confused, it could, one, be because they were so bored earlier that they skipped everything, and they don't want to tell you that they're bored because they feel like bored is like a really mean thing to say. And the other spectrum is if they straight up tell you that they're bored, then you could be going way too slow. And if they're confused, it could also mean that you're overwhelming them, you're giving them too much information, or it's going too quickly. So yeah, there's a lot to it. And practicing managing those elements and trying to match your pace to whatever's going on in your story, that is a big step, and I hope that you can do it. I'll have a video talking about how to get critiques and how to deal with all of that later. Until then, thank you for listening to my ramble about pace. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we can share this puppy with the world. Her name's Serena, because she's a meatball head. She's named after Sailor Moon, basically. Yeah. So there is that. Thank you for watching. Talk to you guys next time.